encourage you to use our services if you need help with anything related to career planning, whether it's a resume review, help with interviewing, trying to find a job or internship, or help with your graduate school application or essays, or just trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, or connecting you with alumni. We are here for you. You can do schedule your appointment on Handshake, sandiego.edu/careers/handshake, call our office, stop by our main office in Manchester. And yeah, don't hesitate to reach out. And then I'm going to introduce you to one of our favorite English professors, Dr. Tim Randall.
Hi, my name is Tim Randall, and welcome. Thank you for doing today's panel. I'd like to thank the Career Development Center for everything they've done to make this event possible, and for all that they do to help people careers and prepare for the job market. In addition to teaching in the English department, I also direct internships for the English department. So I just like to put the information out that internships can be very valuable. And if you are interested in finding one, there's a address to go to Handshake on the screen right now. That's where you can find an internship. And if you find one that has research or writing, you can register it through the English department. And perhaps our panelists today will touch on any valuable internships that they may have done, and maybe they can convince you to look for one yourself. And now it's my honor to introduce the moderator of today's panel. We will then introduce our guest today, and that is May Flory. She is the treasurer of the Sigma Delta English Honor Society at USD. And May, I'll hand it over to you.
All right, cool. Hi, I'm May. I recognize a lot of names here, so happy to see everyone. I guess I will start introductions first with Anna Halligan, who is the TV development coordinator at Legendary Entertainment, where she works both in drama and comedy, helping to develop and sell original live action and animated TV shows for cable and streaming networks. Prior to her work at Legendary, she was on the comedy development and programming team at Fox, where she worked on such shows as New Girl and Brooklyn Nine-Nine, two of my favorite shows. And she also worked as a producer's assistant on Fox's The Last Man on Earth. Anna started her career as the writer's production assistant on Star's Outlander, another great show. So everyone, welcome Anna. And then,
thank you. Hi, everyone.
And then I will also introduce Haley Perez, the social media strategist at the Walt Disney Company. She is currently the manager of social strategy on the digital marketing team for the Walt Disney Company. And in that role, she gets to share captivating stories with families on social media and other digital platforms, promoting films like Black Widow, Jungle Cruise, and also television shows like How I Met Your Mother and New Girl. She gets to work with some of the most accomplished professionals in the industry and learn from them to make herself better each and every day. And she first started out as a production assistant at TMZ, which meant that Haley was getting a dozen drink coffee orders from Starbucks every day, answering phones and running random errands all over LA. But after paying her dues for a couple of years, she was finally hired on as a marketing coordinator at TMZ, a pivotal moment in her career. And this role prepared her to accept a marketing manager role at 20th Television, a division of Fox a few years later, just before the Disney-Fox merger. After the merger was complete and the dust settled, she found herself a permanent member of the Walt Disney Company team and truly couldn't be happier. So welcome, Haley.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here.
All right. And then last but not least, Rafael Rodriguez is the founder and chief creative officer at Deconstructed Media. His most recent work, The Light Particle, chronicles a man's turbulent journey of obsession and desire. This film explores the emotional entanglement and destructive force of passionate love affairs. The Light Particle premiered at the 2021 San Diego Latino Film Festival. In 2005, Rafael wrote, directed, and produced Discoloration, a Spanish film about love, passion, and losing oneself through inaction, which was exhibited at the Museum of Contemporary Art, also in San Diego. Prior to that film, Raphael was hired to write the script Red de Roma, a bilingual screenplay, which was sold in 2006 to Magic Motion Picture Company, a New York-based production studio. He also served as lead editor and post-production supervisor for Dos y Dos, a Spanish language children's TV show. And he founded Deconstructive Media, a microfilm studio, in 2008. So again, welcome, Raphael.
Thank you.
All right. So now we will move into questions for the panelists. Let's start with the first one. Why did you choose your current profession, and how did USD prepare you for your career?
Who wants to go first? I'll go first. So I studied English and theater at USD. I was a double major, and I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do going into college. I just knew that I liked those things. And I liked to read, and I liked to be a part of the arts and creatively stimulated. And by the time I graduated from college, I had the idea that I wanted to be a comedy writer. And that was based on a few internships that I had in college, one of which was on the TV show Conan, which just got me very excited. So I'm not a comedy writer now. I sort of had a different path that led me in different directions and made me figure out that what I actually want to do is work in development, which is being a creative producer and a creative executive. And what I do basically all day, every day is read scripts and watch TV shows and give notes on them, kind of like what a book editor is for books, I do for TV shows. And so it is a direct use of both my English and my theater degrees, because it's kind of like doing literary analysis on a script, and thinking about the themes and thinking about why it matters. And I think, what else was the question? Maybe I answered it.
Yeah, it was mostly just how did USD prepare you for your career? So
yeah, so that was a big, it's pretty hands down, given that I didn't know what I was going to do when I studied there.
Similar to Anna, I also had no idea what I wanted to do when I entered college and kind of when I graduated. I knew that I always was interested in the entertainment industry and the behind the scenes of it all. I knew that I loved Disney and everything that they did. And while I was at USD, I was on the Torero program board. So I kind of got my taste of marketing and events started then when I was on the board, my junior and senior year of college. And, we would put on events and concerts, and I was able to finally realize, that I enjoyed doing these things. And it also taught me how to budget and the very real world things that I still do on a day-to-day basis. So I owe a lot to TPB and USD for that experience.
For me, it's a little different. I've actually wanted to be a filmmaker since I was about 10 years old. I always knew that would be my path. I just didn't know how to get access to the process, or didn't know anybody who was involved in filmmaking at the time. I didn't go to college right after high school. I was not, I took a break that ended up being like 7 years. So by the time I got into USD, I was in my late 20s, pushing 30. But I had already made a few short films on my own. I had already written my screenplay that I sold. But I still felt I kind of needed a little polishing in my writing. So I decided to major in English because I knew I'll be exposed to reading and writing constantly. And it was the right decision for me. I ended up taking a class at USD with Dr. Irene Williams, her assignments were very, very challenging. I don't know if you guys have ever taken her class, but she has a very unique way of asking you to read and write her assignments. And it really helped me deconstruct stories and improve my writing, and it opened up a new perspective for me. And I still use a lot of the techniques I use in Dr. Williams' class. I use them every day here at work. So in that way, it was I feel like it was a very defining moment for my creative journey, was taking Dr. Williams' class at USD.
Awesome. I also took Dr. Williams, and I love her. I highly recommend taking her, any of her classes. But with that, we'll move on to the next question, which is, how do you define your role and what do you contribute to projects in arts, entertainment, or television? Anyone can answer.
I'll go. So I'm on the digital marketing team at the Walt Disney Company, and we're responsible for creating campaigns, digital social media campaigns for Disney Studios, Marvel, Pixar, Searchlight, and driving awareness to the sales of movies and TV series. So every day I help shape the digital campaigns. We manage day-to-day production of the creative, and we also do all the posting across all of the social handles for those pages.
So I work in TV development, like I mentioned, and at a TV studio, Legendary. So we are a independent studio. On the film side, we did Godzilla vs. Kong. We did Dune, which comes out tonight. I'm on the TV side, and basically what we do is find, develop, and package TV shows that then we sell to buyers like Netflix, HBO, Paramount Plus, Fox. And so the process of doing that is either finding a book or an article and thinking, this would be a good TV show. How do we adapt this? Let's find a writer and attach them. Let's find a director and attach them. Let's come up with a pitch and a take that to Netflix and say, like, do you want to buy our shiny new show? Or it's getting submitted a script from an agent that a writer has written that's maybe an original idea, and giving notes on it, and maybe again packaging, maybe adding a star to it if that'll help it sell, and then trying to sell it. And then that's really the development process. And from there you go into the physical production process of making the show. My job as the coordinator on the team is kind of, it's a lot. It's tracking information across the industry, who's taking out what packages, what writers are becoming available that we might want to work with. It's also a ton of reading, and reading scripts of projects that we're currently working on to give notes to make them better, or reading things that we've been submitted to say, is this something that Legendary should work on and take on as a project? Yeah, that's development. It's salesy, but it's also very creatively hands-on with writers and creators. And it's a lot of, meeting with writers and saying, what do you want to work on? What are you interested in? How can we support you? How can we work together? It's a lot of fun.
So my job isn't as fancy as theirs. I run a really small production company. I'm the CEO and Chief Creative Officer at this. So I manage the day-to-day operations as well as lead the creative team. And most of the projects, I write, direct, and produce. Since we are a small team, our whole thing is focusing on high quality work with a small crew. We've been growing the last few years, and we're starting to develop a I would say, a reputation for being a really tight-knit crew that can do some really good work.
Awesome.
And that's pretty much it for me.
That was great. Okay, so then moving on to the next question. Walk us through a typical day or project at work, including skill or talent required to perform your job successfully.
So I guess I can start this one since we all had a turn. So a typical day, obviously starts with a cup of coffee. And once that kind of kicks in, I meet with my post-production team, and we kind of review all the projects that we're working on that we have on our plate. I give them feedback, suggestions, and then I kind of move on and, put on my CEO hat and respond to emails, make calls, promote the business, all that stuff. And then after I'm done with that, I set a big part of the day in the afternoon to just write, storyboard, come up with ideas, anything creative. That's the time I give to myself, because a big part of this is being creative. And if you don't spend the time or dedicate the time, it kind of gets away from you. So I try to give myself as much creative time as possible. As far as skills, filmmaking is problem solving constantly. There's always something going wrong, and you kind of have to keep your cool. You need to stay calm and kind of look at the big picture. Yeah, I think that's it for me.
My typical day, it's very structured around meetings and calls. So usually we'll have a team meeting in the morning where we talk through our slate of projects, which is, probably about 60 projects divvied up among various executives, and sort of giving an update on where we are in the process and what we need to do to continue pushing those projects forward. Whether that's we're waiting for a response on from this actor on whether or not they want to come on to this role, or we're doing a practice pitch next week to rehearse before taking a pitch out the door. And then the rest of the time we have generals, which is a meeting with a writer, just sort of as like a one-on-one get to know you. What are you interested in working on meeting? There are project specific meetings. There's a lot of reading. There's a lot of scheduling these meetings. So yeah, and a big part of it as well, and this was much more of a thing pre-COVID, but something that I didn't realize going into it is that there is so much networking built in. There's usually a lunch, there's usually drinks after work. And these are not with your friends, these are just with colleagues and potential colleagues. And it isn't weird to have someone that you've only emailed with once be like, hey, would you like to get together for drinks? And that's really kind of part of the job. And so sort of the talent and skill is networking, and in a non-sleazy way, if you can take it that way. But getting to know people, liking people, building relationships with them. Because at the end of the day, the whole industry is run on having relationships with people and having people want to work with you and bring their projects to you or buy projects from you. And so that's the most valuable talent and skill, is building relationships, getting people to like you.
For me, I usually start my day by checking all my social media. No, I'm just kidding, but kind of serious. And then once I start to get to work, right now we're working on an in-home campaign for Shang-Chi. So my day consists of working with PR, working with talent, working with the overall marketing strategy team and agencies to execute the campaign. And because of the post-pandemic or middle of pandemic that we're in right now, all of our windows have shifted, and so they're tighter. And so our days, what I like about my job is that our days are not all the same, and they're very fast paced. And every day is completely different than what you expect your morning to start off with usually. So it keeps things interesting, but you know, we are kind of like an all hands on deck team. We all write copy. We all work with agencies. We all are giving approvals on creative, all while trying to obviously maintain the same goal of executing the best campaign possible. For me, the best skill or talent to have is to be able to multitask. Just because Shang-Chi right now is the priority, we're also working on Jungle Cruise and a new film called Encanto, and also doing a bunch of stuff with the TV show. So you have to wear a lot of hats and always be prepared to stop down on something and then pick something up and then come back to it, because there are tight deadlines and you know, just not always a lot of time in the day to get them done.
That sounds so fast paced, but so cool.
It is. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I guess that kind of leads into the next question. What is the most challenging aspect and the most rewarding aspect of your job?
I'll jump in. For me, it's seeing anything that you've worked on come to life, even if it's a 30-second social spot, something that it was your idea, you worked to create it, and then you see it out in the world. That's awesome. Or like, you know, there have been times where I've worked on outdoor creative, like billboards, and I'll be driving down the 5 and I'd be like, hey, I worked on that. Like that's the kind of stuff that makes me excited and happy. And I know that's kind of cheesy, but it's the little things like that. And then, like I mentioned, the challenging part is just having to wear so many different hats and, you know, maintaining a positive attitude and meeting those deadlines.
For me, the most challenging part is obviously because we're a small team and we have to wear multiple hats. The stages of production can be very challenging, and they're very intense. It can be very intense depending on the project. So there's a lot of moving parts, and it's really easy to sabotage your film or to just get mentally drained from all the stuff that's happening. But the rewarding part, as mentioned before, is seeing the final product, finishing something and taking it from basically a blank page to the screen. It's kind of a feeling that it becomes addictive, but you really don't forget. Each work is special to you, and because of all the work that gets put in, it's very rewarding at the end.
Yeah, I would say very similarly. The biggest challenge for me is work-life balance and trying to set boundaries. These jobs can be super all-consuming, and there is almost this expectation that, you know, because you're doing a career that you love and a fun career, like it should be your life, and that's very hard, and the burnout is real. But the most rewarding part for me is getting to have these really creative conversations with really smart, funny, talented people, and get to come up with ideas with them, and then there's like the little victory moments, like we're pitching an animated show right now, and yesterday we got an offer on it from Amazon, and like getting to tell the writer and the creator that like somebody wants to develop their show is very exciting. And you know, it's a passion project for them, and like I love all our shows, but you know, for these writers and the creators, like that's their baby, and you get to be like, we get to grow your baby. So that's really rewarding for me.
No, for sure. That sounds so fun. And also that was a good point about like work-life balance that I feel is very important now, especially after like COVID and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving on to the next question. How do you and or your company define success?
I guess it's my turn. So it depends on the project. For us, if it's a commercial or business project, if the client is happy with what we created, if they hire us back, that's a success for us. From a creative standpoint, from a film, when we create a film, it's really just about the film and producing the best possible film that we can. And I know it's subjective, sometimes people don't agree with what we do, but in the end, as long as we feel we put everything in it, that is a success for us.
I think for my company as a whole, the success would be viewed as we've sold a lot of shows, they've been picked up to series, they're successful and they're bringing in money. And Dune is like a huge hit, and we have 40 Godzilla versus Kong spinoff shows. And that would be great. But I think success more for me is, am I working on things that I care about, that I think are important, that I feel like we're putting good messaging out into the world. And so much of why I wanted to work in entertainment was this idea that you can see stuff on TV and in movies that makes you feel less isolated, and you can relate to people, and you can feel, like your fears are understood, or your feelings, and like that can be done with comedy, that can be done with genre, that can be done in all kinds of ways. But like I'd feel successful if somebody watched something that I had a part in and it made them feel good or seen, or part of a collective in the world in a bigger sense.
For me, I think day to day, I base my success on how much I accomplished and how much I brought to the team, and what, creative ideas I had. It's a hard thing to gauge on a daily basis, because you kind of feel like you're doing a lot every day, but you don't really like see it until the end. But the effort, as long as I feel like I give a good solid effort day to day, then I'll feel good about, that day for now. And overall, like the company, obviously, like Anna mentioned, it's basically just sales. Like, how did this campaign do? How did it compare to other campaigns that are similar audiences, or, going to similar audiences? There's so much research that goes into everything. It's hard to say, really.
Yeah, that's fair. What are the skills or qualifications that you look for in people you work with or hire?
I would say that, oh gosh, the skills that I look for in people that basically I want them to have an attitude of really being willing to jump in and do whatever needs to be done to be a part of the team, and have an enthusiastic attitude. Like Haley mentioned, so much of the beginning of your career is like getting coffee for people, and it's a slog. But you got to do it, and everybody's got to do it. So you've got to have a good attitude. You've got to be also if you're working on a set, you could be working 12 hours a day or more. Like, you want to be someone people want to hang out with, and want to work with. Every job you apply for will ask for someone who's detail oriented. That's so big in all of these jobs. Just not letting things slide through the cracks. People can trust you to get a job done. Oh no. And so that's really the thing. It's like, are you someone people want to work with? The industry is small and the career is long, and you want to be nice to people.
I was just going to say, like, HR could send us 10 resumes of people who can do the job. No doubt. They have the skills, they have everything, all the requirements that we're looking for. It's just a matter of attitude. Like, are you dependable? Are you punctual? Do you come to work wanting to be there and motivated? Like, as much as, you know, we're all working through screens right now, you can tell when somebody is not excited to be there. So I mean, just put your best foot forward as much as you can. I understand like everybody has rough days, but you know, if you're consistent for the most part, that's something that's noticeable. And like almost every situation where we've been able to hire somebody, it's come down to personality and how you're meshing with the team.
I agree with everything. I think a positive attitude is very important. And also an attitude of wanting to solve problems and understanding that, you know, things are always going to come up and excuses kind of don't go very far. So you have to be willing to solve the problem, figure it out. I always try to hire people who are passionate about film and movies and like the whole process, because it is so draining and you work long, you know, 12, 16-hour days. It has to be somebody who truly loves it, or else it's not going to last very long.
Right. Thank you. We have one more question, and that is, what advice do you have for current USD students who are interested in a career in the arts, entertainment, television, anything like that?
I would just say take any opportunity that comes your way if it's in a field that you are interested in. Like I mentioned, I started off as a production assistant. I was getting coffee. There were incidents and days on sets where there was one time where I had to spend my day looking for a rat because it was eating through wires. And I thought, I graduated from USD. I shouldn't be doing this. But it was one of those moments that I was like, what is my end goal here? When I graduated, I applied to work at Disney and they told me that I didn't have enough experience. And so I was like, okay, that's fair. I don't have any experience at all. So, you know, I took the opportunity as the PA. I worked my way up and I got the experience I needed to be able to be where I am today. So like, just take any opportunity as long as it's something that you can see yourself doing and doing well, to get to where you want to be.
Haley, how did you find your PA job?
I just reached out to people on LinkedIn and I found somebody who worked at Warner Brothers in production. And I just said, is there anywhere that you could see me fitting? And he was like, if you can survive at TMZ, you can survive anywhere. And that has honestly been the truth. It has been a great lesson for me.
That's great. So it wasn't somebody that you knew, it was just kind of like a cold.
Yeah.
Not even an alum.
Not even an alum, just somebody that I saw who looked approachable, and you know, I just took that chance.
Good to know.
Yeah, my advice for finding an internship or a job is to reach out to everyone you know who might be tangentially connected, as well as alumni, as well as like someone you're sort of connected to on LinkedIn. I emailed so many people and some people will not respond, but some people will respond, and it beats applying online for everything and never hearing back. And then my advice for your career as a whole is that it probably won't be a very clear ladder or stairway. And that's okay, because you'll take opportunities and jobs as you come by them and as you can, and you'll learn different things along the way, and you'll meet different people along the way, and they'll affect what you learn about what you want to do and what you care about. And like I said before, I thought I wanted to be a comedy writer. My first job was in a writer's room on Outlander. And I was like, well, this is really great, but it's not comedy. And so I'll be really happy when I get into a comedy writer's room. And I finally got into a comedy writer's room and I was like, I don't really like this. Like, you have to be competitively pitching jokes and it's very anxiety inducing. And I didn't really want to do it. And I was like, but I've been spent years pursuing this. So how do I walk away from something I've spent years pursuing? But I got an opportunity to work in production on The Last Man on Earth. And I liked production because it was very sort of creative problem solving. But it also wasn't super creative storytelling wise. And I missed that. And then from there, I got my job in development. And that was sort of a best of both worlds situation. But by that time I had been working in LA for years. And I was still sort of in an entry level development job. But, you know, now I have experience on set and I have experience working with writers, and that's invaluable experience for my job now, even though it was not a clear trajectory where, you know, like at 22, you have this job so that by 28, you have this job. It's all a journey, and that's very much okay.
So I agree with both Haley and Anna. I think if you really want to do jump in a career in entertainment, because it's such a kind of tight-knit community and it's hard to get in, you really have to make your own opportunities. You can't be afraid to reach out to people and just see if one of them responds. I can only speak from a filmmaker standpoint. As far as the career process, I recommend you stay away from it, to be honest with you, because it's a very up and down kind of trajectory. You're always, you know, you do something really well, you're here, and then all of a sudden you go down there. And there's not a lot of money for independent filmmakers, but if you truly love what you do, you know, I've been able to sustain myself for 20 years making films and my family. And just go out there and make movies, make as many as you can and get better at it, read as much as you can, get exposed to as many stories as you can, and it will help your storytelling skills. But as far as career advice, it's a matter of perseverance and timing and knowing when to jump on an opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you guys for answering all the facilitated questions. We will now go ahead and open the floor to audience questions. So if anyone would like to unmute themselves, raise their hand, and go ahead and ask away.
While you're thinking of your questions, I wanted to let you all know about TEAM, T-E-A-M. I put the address in the chat. It's our networking platform. So it is like LinkedIn, but the difference is they're all USD alumni and they've already agreed to be contacted by USD students. So for career advice, quick questions or an informational interview, or just doing what you're doing today. How do I break into this field? What advice would you give me? And as Anna and Haley had mentioned, the importance of networking and reaching out. And this is just such a great resource because you know that you're not bothering them, that they want to help. It looks like there was a question for Raphael.
Okay.
What was your process of getting your work into exhibitions?
Like film festivals and the museums. You know, the festival mark, or the whole festival tour thing is kind of just numbers. You know, get on Film Freeway and just submit your film to as many festivals as you can afford. And once your film gets into one, it kind of, what happens, it's like a trickle down effect. Other festivals or other programmers start seeing your film and they invite you to film to their festival. And I mean, that's pretty much how it works. You have to be also very conscious of the festivals you select to you're filming, because some festivals are looking for very specific things. You should look at their programming from the prior years just to see what kind of films they generally choose. This year, pandemic was kind of weird and festivals were kind of weird. They were very anticlimactic. There was no red carpet or anything like that. Everything was online. The film festival, the Latino Film Festival I was in this year, kind of did a cool thing where they did both, and they did it at the drive-in. But so even then, like that, my film is very experimental, and generally a festival like the Latino Film Festival doesn't really kind of respond to experimental films. But since my film also kind of fell into the drama territory, I think it helped it to get in. And their submission fees are so low to begin with. I mean, I think they were like $7. So there was no, it's a risk. I was willing to lose $7. But there's other festivals like Sundance will charge you $75 per entry, or South by Southwest charges, $100. So it can get expensive, but it's a matter of just playing the numbers and looking for the right film festivals. My film did better in Europe than here in the US. But the good thing about the Film Freeway is that you can apply to festivals all over the world. So definitely just throw a big net.
So,
I hope that answers the question.
I've noticed that Tatum's had their hand up for a while, so you can go ahead and ask a question.
Thanks. Can you hear me all right? Okay, cool. So hi, I'm Tatum. And I had a question for all of you, more specifically Mr. Rodriguez, because so I entered in something called the Fowler competition. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like for entrepreneurial business ideas that you have. And if you get selected, you can win a scholarship, and it can go towards your idea that you want to be as like a change maker. And my idea was actually to start a show, and it has to do with being a change maker. And I feel like it could really help other people. And I was wondering, like, from your perspective, like, I'm planning on pursuing this show idea, and I already have like people who would want to host it. And like, I know a few celebrities in the reality TV business. Like, my friend is friends with Kyle Richards. I don't know if you've heard of her. And like, she's a reality TV, like she's on Real Housewives, like all this stuff. But like, I'm concerned for like just the nature of it being like, I am young and like I don't have really a lot of resources, and like I don't know a lot of people. And, like, I'm hoping that like I'll get far in this competition, staying optimistic. But like, what would you say to like someone my age, like who's like, I'm also older, like this is probably like my 5th, 6th year here. And I kind of discovered later what I wanted to do in life. And I just wanted to know, like, if you have any advice, like where I should start. Like, I would love to hear that. So.
So when you say where you should start, you mean as far as coming up with resources for the production, or what?
Yeah, like stuff like that, like who I should get in contact with, if there's something I should do. Should I do like angel investors? Like, what would you say, like offer a partnership? Like, I'm not looking in it for like making a lot of money. Like I'm thinking of like, I want to help other people with this idea. And like, it would be something like on the sort of like a reality TV show that involves like all their components and stuff.
So, I mean, it really, it's it's really up to you, how far you want to go to, as far as, burning through resources, going on groups, Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, things like that, where people are actively looking to help out people like, like you. In my experience, what's helped me is that I kind of had a body of work before I started approaching people for funding. I had, when I was younger, I kind of already had a pretty good reputation in the film festival circuit, so people knew me. So it's easier to get through, get through the door. and I already had a credit to my name as far as selling a screenplay. But it's really, it's finding the right partner is important, because a lot of times, you don't get that money for free. You're going to give up something, whether it be creative control or the rights to the show or things like that. So you just have to be, really careful who you partner up with. There is money out there. There is people that are, doing this, and they look for projects like this. I would recommend just posting something on LinkedIn is always a good resource, because those are generally the people who are serious about things. I don't have the what do you call it, the groups off the top of my, I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of, but I can send them to Professor Randall, and he could, provide you with that, so you can look more into it.
Yeah, I'd be
Thank
happy
you.
to.
That would be really great.
Just so you know, like my business, when I started it, I funded it through an investor. And it was a learning experience to me too. And I was, in my early 30s when I did this, and it is, it's kind of like you're getting married, and you're kind of figuring things out, the first few years or whatever. So you have to be willing to give and take. That's a big part of it, and a big part of because there's usually a lot of money at stake. So you can't always, have it your way.
Thank you.
I hope that helps. I'm sorry.
All right, so there are some questions in the chat. We'll start with Mary's question. This is sort of for everyone. How did you find internships and connections during and after your time at USD?
My first internship was at Entertainment Tonight and The Insider. And then my second internship was at Conan. The first one I got both of them by emailing 1 million people that I had vague connections to, and not asking for an internship, but asking for advice, saying, I'm interested in working in entertainment. Do you have any advice for someone like me? And usually then, if they were willing to talk to me and engage with me, they would bring up an internship or say, are you looking for internships, blah, blah, blah. The Conan one I actually got through a USD student who had heard about my Entertainment Tonight job and was like, my sister works in TV at Conan. And I was like, really? And I reached out to her. So a lot of shameless networking, and don't be afraid of people not responding. Don't be afraid to follow up with people and check in. My first job on Outlander, I got because I knew that a former ballet teacher's husband worked in entertainment, and I emailed her asking for advice. And so you never know how you can sort of hunt down those opportunities.
I was going to say, my transition from Warner Brothers to Fox only happened because I asked my former Warner Brothers boss to make the connection for me to somebody at Fox that I knew that he knew. And so, it's kind of just like looking around to see what your options are and making it happen. Luckily, they were good friends, and he was happy to make that connection. And I believe that's one of the reasons why I was able to get the job, because, they trusted each other. They trusted that, he wouldn't give him somebody that was going to do a bad job.
For me, unfortunately, I didn't even know USD had programs like this. I wasn't a typical student. I went to school and went to class and then went back home, had a full-time job. So I wasn't really involved in this, I guess, campus life or whatever. But I just, I internship for the film Titanic. Anything that was happening in San Diego, I would look for and just go there and see if they're, willing to take me on as either intern PA or whatever, or grip, anything, carry cables, anything, just to get as much, excuse me, as much exposure as possible. A lot of it, like they've said already, it's about creating your own opportunities. And I mean, when I was in school, they didn't have any film studies or anything like that at USD. So it was something that I didn't even think about while I was there, that I could possibly get help in. But one thing I did get at USD, I got to work with, when they had the creative writing workshops, I got to work with published writers. And through there, I kind of built relationships and met other people. There were also screenplay writers. So that was really exciting. So it's always about just listening, keeping your ears open, and then, there's no shame, jumping in and trying to open that door.
All right. Thank you. I hope that answered your question, Mary. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and move on to Haley. You have a question?
Hi, I'm Haley. I'm a sophomore. I'm majoring in communications with a minor in theater and business. This question's for Anna. So Anna, I heard that you had interest in being a comedy writer, and I do too right now. Actually, that's my top interest. And when you said you interned for Conan, I literally got chills when you said that, because Conan's one of my biggest comedy inspirations with the writing he did for SNL and even his own show. So that was insane to hear. That was really cool. And yeah, I guess I just want to know, so you went into the comedy field thinking, this is what I want, kind of had all of your eggs in that basket. And then when you realize this isn't what I want, you found a backup plan and just writing and doing the job you do now at it was the Legendary, yeah, the company. So I guess what I want to know about that is, my dream is to kind of shoot for the late night television shows and that type of NBC production era. But, should I study or should I take internships in broader fields in case I go into it and I really don't enjoy it and then I have a fallback like you did, or will it all just kind of happen in a, sorry, if this makes any sense. But no, yeah, it does. Should I keep it broader than just putting all my eggs in the comedy basket and then finding out maybe this isn't for me,
I don't think that I wouldn't think of it as putting all the eggs in that basket. You pursue what you want to pursue when you want to pursue it. And if it doesn't work out, then you change and you go somewhere else. And that's not to cut yourself off from another opportunity. If somebody is saying like, but I need a PA on the blacklist, you don't say like, no, it's not comedy, if that's the opportunity you have. But like specifically for wanting to be a comedy writer, I would say apply for the NBC Page program. That will give you a really great overview, but it also like get you, if you do the New York version, into SNL or into late night. Apply for all the internships at the late night shows in Los Angeles. Sign up for improv classes. That stuff is so important. In LA, like that, I did improv and sketch comedy at UCB, and not only is it great for working on your skills and your mind, but it's also, it just opens so many doors because it's a whole community and all those people are comedy writers and know about jobs, and it's just really invaluable. And writing all the time, write sketches, write jokes, put together a packet of your favorite jokes, your favorite sketches, write a comedy pilot, so that if you meet someone and you have an opportunity, you have the work to show for yourself, and also just because you'll be honing the skill as you go. And yeah, I mean, you might get there and not like it, or you might get a different job and really like it and want to stay there. But I wouldn't worry about like not chasing the dream, like now when you're your age, like go for it.
No, definitely. Thank you so much. That was more than like what I want. That was incredible. Thank you. And I'd love to also connect with you sometime too. So definitely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Awesome. Okay, we're gonna hop back to the chat because we have another question for Anna. How would you say working on the development team for movies such as Dune differ from others because they were originally books and or have already been adapted?
That's an awesome question. So a lot of the time we like to adapt from books and intellectual property IP because it has a pre-existing fan base. And so that's why we often go after video games or comic books or regular books, because it just helps sell. But another aspect of it is that because you have those built-in fan bases, you really want to honor them and the work that they fell in love with and do right by it. And it was something we talked about a lot when I worked on Outlander, based on a very well-selling romantic book series, and people, you know, have tattoos of lines from that on their bodies. And you don't want to take their favorite characters that they fell in love with and ruin them. And also you want to include, ideally, the author of the book series or the creator of the video game, and so that they also feel seen and like their work is honored, and like it is the best version for TV or film that it can be. But it does change the process. It gives you less creative freedom, but it also gives you so much to work off of. And right now we're working on animated series based on Tomb Raider, and also based on Skull Island. And we're designing Lara Croft's face for animation. And it's interesting because the notes that we get from the video game creators will be like, oh, it's actually really well known that Lara has like a certain type of bridge on her nose that, you know, like we take into account when animating her, and things like that. So so it gives you a lot to work off, but also less freedom too.
Awesome. Thank you. I hope that answers the question. We'll go ahead and move back to you, Kenneth. Your hand's been up for a while.
Hey, how are you? Am I coming in? Hello.
Hi.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
My camera doesn't work, but picture a very handsome young man. So my name's Kenneth. You call me Kenny. English major, senior. This is kind of a question for like all three of you, actually. But I think Mr. Rodriguez, you'd have like a really different aspect, different perspective. That'd be cool. So how was the transition from school work really into like professional work? Because I know it's not exactly like a one-to-one transition, like essays versus what all of you do is like such more professional work, really.
A good question. You know, I can't. So I did take a screenplay class at USD with Dr. Clausen. I think he's still there. But at that time I had already sold my screenplay, and I really took it because I wanted to almost like validate that I was a screenwriter, because at that point I still didn't consider myself a screenwriter. But for me, it just, that transition was kind of a blur, because I jumped into it. I self-taught myself how to write, and as I got better and started working with others, I learned from them and how to write a screenplay, how to format it, what the process is, you know, creative process is for it. But it is, yeah, very different than writing essays. I think in the end, you just kind of have to trust yourself and, you know, practice your writing as much as you can. Don't, you know, everybody writes differently. Every screenwriter is a little different. They have a different style. But, you know, as long as you can tell a good story, I think that's what matters. You know, it's important to learn the formatting, because most production companies won't even read it if it's not formatted correctly or it looks unprofessional. So I think that's a key part. And as far as the story is concerned, what I do with my stories is I'm very simple and minimalist when it comes to my writing. And so I just tell the story, and focus on that. I don't try to use big words or anything like that. It's just telling the story. And I think if you want to be a professional, if you want to differentiate yourself from, school and being a professional, is just write as much as you can, and you'll get better. I mean, if you're consciously trying to get better, you'll get better. I hope that answer helps.
Definitely, thank you.
Can you ask the question again? I'm just want to be clear on something.
Yeah, no problem. But I forgot my own question. So like, I'm just interested. Maybe if I could put it stupid. Wait, I don't know. How was like the transition from like schoolwork, like you know how like when you're a student, like everything seems pretty like hard as it is, like
Yes.
essays, tests, all that. But I know like the professional world, they'll like you all just said, they want focus groups, they want like write-ups, notes, all that. Like how did you like lull into that? Like was that like a snap thing, or was it like oh, I had to like build up to it?
I definitely think that, when you're doing your own schoolwork and your homework, like you're only really concerned about yourself and your grade, right? Besides like the occasional group project. When you are working, a lot of times everything that you do is obviously people count on you, right? Like, if they give you an assignment, they expect you to get it done, not because you're going to get a grade on it, but because you have to get it done. So, I mean, I think that's probably the easiest way to answer that question, is that it's more focused on the greater good of the company rather than just yourself. And I think, honestly, there are times where I still wake up in the middle of the night and think that I missed a homework deadline or missed a class, or, there's things like that still happen to me. But I think that those, especially the way that I learned at USD, helped me become a good employee. So, just take everything seriously. And I think that'll ultimately help you in the long run.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, these careers are hard, but school is also really hard. So you're probably better prepared than you think. And you'll get to do some of the stuff that you really like, and you won't have to do some of the stuff that you didn't really like. So that's nice too.
And if I could just add one more thing, because I think I've also experienced this. I think sometimes you're self-conscious about your own work or your writing, but USD is, it's a good school and you're going to come out prepared. So you kind of just have to let that go.
Wow, thank y'all. That's that's inspiring.
All right, let's hop back into the chat. Bianca had a question for all the panelists. What are some of the key lessons you learned that led to your career advancement?
I think some of the key lessons, which we kind of touched on before, is, knowing when to take an opportunity, but also know when to walk away from an opportunity too. Just because, you got your foot in the door somewhere, it may not be the right fit. And, I think right now you all are at an age where you can take as many chances as you want. And, nothing is permanent unless you want it to be, or, even if you want it to be, sometimes it's not. It's been a crazy couple of years. So just kind of being able to go with the flow and be flexible kind of helps.
Yeah, I think I said this before, but be nice to people, and always, and stay in touch with them. And I don't know, Royale.
I mean, for me, lessons I learned is not to get too attached to my work or emotional, because emotions generally you tend to respond too quickly without giving it some thought. That's one of the main things that I've learned in my years of doing this. And also, yeah, being nice to people, help people when you can, because it will come back. They will come back and help you when they can. It's very important. This business is very collaborative. It's a collaborative process. There's a lot of people involved in just one film. That's why you see those long credits. So it's important to treat everybody with respect, because you never know when, they can move up and be able to help you.
And you'll never know, like, if you'll work with them again on a different project. A lot of times, you'll work on a project with a group of people and think, I'm never going to see them again. And then you work on a different title and you're working with them again. So it's important to, maintain those relationships and be nice to people and be helpful and be a good team member, because people remember that.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And hopefully that answers your question, Bianca. So now we'll move to Jeffrey with his hand up.
Hi, everyone. So my question is, like, if you were trying to pitch like a screenplay to like Disney or like one of these like major companies, what would like the best steps, so to speak, be to like go from like writing to agent to meeting with the executive? Like, how would you suggest going about that?
Well, I don't work on the film side, although I think it's probably fairly similar, but you can't really get in those meetings unless you have an agent or a manager to set you up. So the first order of business, it's after you've written all your stuff, is trying to get representation. And then usually your agent or manager will work on it with you a little bit, maybe give you some notes, give you some tweaks. And then at that point, they might decide, like, we want to send this to various producers at production companies or somebody at Legendary. And then usually they'll read it and decide if they want to meet with you and talk about it more. Or you'll bring it to a production company who will decide to do it. You still don't get paid at that point, usually. And then maybe try and attach a director or attach a star and go from there. I think it's a little different for film versus TV, but that's kind of the process, is that it sort of has to go through agents and managers.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
that's all I got.
No, I'm sorry. I think that really helps. Thank you so much for answering.
Of course.
Okay, we got another anonymous question for anyone. Did you move to LA for an opportunity? And if you did, how would you describe moving to or living in LA for a job in television?
I mean, my answer is very honest. When I moved from USD to LA, it was a rough go at first. When you are a production assistant, I think, I was making $10 an hour and they were never guaranteed hours. So there was a time where there were lots of roommates in LA that I had. And, honestly, though, some of my best friends were made in those years because we were all kind of struggling through it together. It was just a very different situation from living in Mission Beach compared to coming to LA in those first few years. But I mean, I think it's almost necessary to move to LA or even possibly New York if you want to be in this business, because this is where, these are the hubs, right? So there are other opportunities. Like, I know Disney has offices in Bristol, Connecticut, but besides that, we're all here.
Yeah. They do some production if you want to be in like on-set physical production in places like Atlanta and some other places, but mostly if you are in the business, you are probably going to at least some of the time be in LA. that can be rough. The transition was rough. But I don't know. I love LA now. So yeah, I do kind of think you have to be here, and I do kind of think you have to be here even to get the jobs, which I know isn't great. And maybe that is different now that people are Zooming and working remotely anyway, but it can be tough because some of those PA jobs, they interview and they want someone to start 3 days from then. So jobs can come up very quickly and you kind of need to be there.
I think it just depends what type of work you want to do. For me, I've never had to move to LA, but I do go there a lot. But most of the projects we do are finance here. So I haven't had the need to go up to LA and live there. And I kind of like San Diego. Not a big fan of LA or the Dodgers, by the way. But I think I did work in LA for a short period for Universal Music. I was editing music videos at the time. And that experience kind of wasn't for me, just the city and everything else. I just didn't, I didn't want to move my family there. But I feel like as a filmmaker, independent filmmaker, you can live anywhere. You can make a movie from anywhere.
All right, thank you. And I think that kind of answers Lauren's question too. Is it necessary to move somewhere like LA or New York? So we can go ahead and move on to Anthony's question.
Hi, my name is Anthony. I'm a junior and I'm majoring in marketing. My question is for Haley, and that's what's the process of like promoting campaigns such as Shang-Chi and Black Widow in relation to production companies like Marvel Studios, and like how closely do you work together on that, or if all, on what's marketed and promoted?
We work very closely with Marvel. Marvel and Lucas and Pixar, when they create these films, they are their babies, right? So when we take over, it's after the film has been in theaters, and we are just trying to extend the life and try to get consumers to buy it on digital and Blu-ray. So basically every move we make, we have to get it approved. So that's why it's important to, make those relationships with Marvel, because, sometimes, we need things right away, and their process is a little strenuous because they want to make sure that everything is good to go. So it's one of those things where, you want to be able to maintain professional relationships with them, but also be like human with them and just be like, hey, I need this by 3 p.m. and then they'll get that to you. But they are definitely very hands-on, and they're protecting their brand and we're protecting their brand, and it's a partnership, but sometimes we have different visions. So we have different end goals sometimes. So it's a fine line balancing between the two.
Great, thank you so much for your response.
No problem.
Okay, back to the chat, Miriam. It's a two-part question. How do you learn to receive criticism, both from critics and the public in your job, about the creative works you help produce? And how do you learn where to take criticism from and how to either engage with it or ignore it?
Okay. So for me, for me, kind of the way it works, if I give somebody something to read that I wrote and I don't get any feedback, or I get the, oh, this is great, I'm not happy. I actually want people to criticize my work because I want it to be as good as it can be. So you kind of have to get a tough skin and learn and kind of deal with it, and also know that everything's subjective. Not everybody's gonna love your stuff, but it's not that your film is crappy or your screenplay is crappy. It's just they're not the right audience for it. And you gotta, you take the criticism, you decide if you don't internalize it. I guess you don't want to internalize criticism ever, because it's not a criticism on you. It's a criticism on your movie. and you can decide if you want to make that change or not.
Yeah, I'm usually the person in the position of giving the notes. So that's nice for me, but I think like I'm never giving a note because I'm like, well, this is bad and they're a bad writer. You know, like I'm giving a note because I think it'll make it better. And I also, you know, speaking for the executives at Legendary, we're also not the end all be all. So you can take a note because you thought about it and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. Or you can not take a note and that's up to you too. As far as like outside criticism, like if something that I helped make gets a bad review, I mean, that's not great, but also like by that time you've been working on it for a few years and you probably kind of know what people are going to criticize. You kind of probably aren't going to be totally surprised if it's a fair criticism. And if it's just a mean criticism, like a troll, then, well, who cares?
I was just going to add, we do a lot of posting on social media, and we all know that, you know, people behind the keyboard can get really mean really fast. And I have posted on the New Girl handles and the How I Met Your Mother handles and Lost and a bunch of TV shows with a lot of fans that are very passionate people. And so there are times where I put creative out there and instantly people are super negative about it. And I just have to remember that it's nothing personal against me, and it's not my, like, I didn't create Lost, right? I'm just reposting things. So, you know, there's a little bit of separation, which is helpful, but, you know, criticism is something that happens pretty much daily when you work in social media.
All right, well, thank you all for answering. I hope that answers your question, Miriam. Lily also has a question. I see your hand up.
Hello. Hopefully my Wi-Fi is okay, but my name's Lily. I'm a junior communications major, and I actually just transferred to USD. I was formerly a musical theater major, so I'm kind of interested in entertainment from all the different aspects of it. But my question is for Haley specifically, because working for Disney is one of my like ultimate goals.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess just what does Disney look for specifically with people they hire, and what can I be doing at USD to kind of better my chances of, you know, getting hired by the company?
Totally. I think they, especially for entry level jobs, they just want to see passion. They know that you don't know everything there is to know about the entertainment industry. They know that, you know, you're coming in green. And actually our team just hired somebody who went to SDSU, but brand new green onto our team. And it was really because he mentioned how passionate he was and how, you know, he had a little bit of experience, you know, doing social media, managing some pages, and, you know, just broadening your horizons in just a little bit of everything is something that's really helpful. I mean, you're not going to be an expert on anything when you're coming into it, especially if you haven't had like an internship in the field, but it's something that you don't necessarily need. And I think within Disney, there's so many opportunities. So, you know, you can find something that you kind of like and then work your way up or move around once you're in. Sorry, I think I got off track. What was your question?
It was that actually helps a lot, but it was
okay.
What you look for and like what can I be doing at USD to prepare myself?
I mean,
I think you covered a lot of things.
I am a firm advocate for the Terrell Program Board. I don't know, it's probably might be too late, but just attend those events and get to know the students running those events, because, you know, they are also in the marketing department and they might know people that might be able to help you in your future. I don't know, I learned a lot in that program.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we had another question in the chat. How did you all balance trying to make a living while being available for possible opportunities? So like picking between working because you need to versus working where you want to be?
And this decision is sort of based on your financial life and and your own situation. But for me, you know, I didn't want to be out of work. Like I needed to make a living. And so sometimes when you work show to show to show, a job ends and you want to have your next job lined up, or you want to have a job starting a week after, you know. And so sometimes that meant taking jobs that maybe you weren't as excited about, but because you wanted to work. And I think it's very risky to be like, well, my dream is to work for Lorne Michaels Broadway video production company, and they might be hiring someone, they said, so I'm not going to go out for other opportunities or interview other places, unless you're in the financial position to do so. But yeah, I think you just have to go with opportunities, and you'll be surprised because you might like something more than you expected, or you might meet someone there who will help you get to where you want to go. And kind of take the opportunities as they come would be my advice.
For me, I actually don't listen to what I'm about to say because I took a different approach. I took a leap of faith. I quit my job and I decided to do this. Luckily, I came out of it. It was right in the middle of the 2008 recession that was about to hit. So the market was really bad. I had very little in my savings. I used to work for Apple at the time, and I didn't want to do it anymore. I wanted to do this, and I took a leap of faith. I got lucky. I was able to get big clients pretty quickly, but that's not, that doesn't always happen. It actually rarely happens. I was just very lucky.
I will say though, because that's much more inspiring than my answer. I will say though that I did leave my full-time job on Outlander after like 3 years to go to work on a month-long show. So for a pilot. So it was very much like you're leaving a full-time job for something that is temporary, and that was risky, but it was because it was a comedy. And I talked to a friend and I was like, how do I leave a full-time job for something that's temporary? And she was like, you've been saying for years you want to work in comedy. This is your opportunity to work in comedy. If you're not doing it, then I don't know what you're doing. And it ended up being good advice because on that pilot, I met more people and it turned into a long-term job. So there is definitely something to be said for taking leaps of faith.
Yeah, and I think I would just add, like, as I mentioned, as a PA, we weren't making any money really, and we didn't have any benefits. And so it was kind of just the mindset of like, I know that this is not ideal and this is not, something that it can be super long term, but I know that I need to do this for now in order to get to where I want to be eventually.
You all mentioned PA jobs a lot. Is there an easy way to find the PA opportunities?
I know that there are Facebook groups where you can join if you want to be a production assistant. But I mean, if anybody's interested in being a production assistant, you can reach out to probably any one of us and we can lead you in the right direction.
I think people are always looking for PAs.
Mm-hmm.
Production companies are always looking for PAs. We're always looking for PAs.
One other like great entry-level job, well, it's not a great entry-level job, but it's great for getting your foot in the door and getting that first job, is to work at an agency in the mailroom. And that is how a lot of people in development, managers, agents, producers came up. So that's like CAA, UTA, WME, ICM, Gersh, like Google those places. They're entry-level jobs. You do not have to have a lot of experience, although internships will help. And they are sort of grueling jobs. agents aren't known for being the most nice people to work for, but you put in a year at one of those places, it's grad school, you come out with the education in who's who and how things work. And because you have agency experience, people know that you are a trained machine in administrative executive assistant work, and it will help you get hired all sorts of other places.
I think that's
And
it for
And
questions.
type in the chat, maybe the CAA, was it William
Mhm.
Morris?
Yeah, I'll type them in.
Okay. Sorry, I interrupted someone.
No, that's okay. I think that's it for questions, though.
I just see one last question there. I think it was about how people would be able to connect. And I was wondering if maybe Diana and Sue can give some information there. There it is. About perhaps using Team or any other resources that we have for students and alumni to connect.
Yes, so is my screen showing? Yeah. If you want to scan this code, this QR code, and you can get onto our link tree, and there's links to Handshake there, where you can search for jobs and internships. There's links to Team for networking, our social media, as well as one-on-one appointments, all of that. So I think.
And I'd also encourage Anna, Haley, and Raphael have all mentioned and offer generously if any of your students want to reach out to them. So I recommend kind of looking them up on LinkedIn, sending them a request and making sure that you mention today's panel just so they know kind of how you heard about them, how you connected with them, but being able to follow up with them for different questions or even just to follow them on LinkedIn. I think that can often help seeing the type of things that they post or different kind of networks and things that they might, that can help you keep up on things going on in the industry. But Anna, Haley, and Raphael, thank you again for being here. I know you've shared a lot of inspiring advice, helpful insights, and hopefully that's really been helpful for our students to see some of the ups and downs of different careers and kind of take some of that inspiration for their own careers. So.
Well, thank you. Thank you for
Thank
inviting
you.
me.
Yeah, you all.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. It's been such a pleasure having you guys and seeing you again. And thank you so much for sharing your experiences with our students. I'm thinking about changing my career now because it sounds so great what you guys are doing. So
Don't do it. Bye. Thank you so much, you guys.
May, thank you again for moderating.
Yes, thank you, May.
It was nice meeting you, May.
Yeah, it's nice meeting everyone. Thank you guys for letting me have that opportunity.